you know, there's always going to be a few knuckleheads in any stadium, not just Philadelphia, that's going to have a lack of appreciation for what the man accomplished. But Skip knows this. You know, I worked in Philadelphia for 16 years. I covered Andy Reid on numerous occasions. I find him to be a very good, if not a great coach, and definitely a great man. And he's somebody that should be incredibly appreciated for the job that he's done. It wasn't always flawless. There had been many times where people found themselves scratching their head in terms of his archaic approach to his offense or what have you, or his refusal to run the football more, to throw the football too much, to be so committed to the West Coast offense, et cetera, et cetera. But in the end, what it comes down to, in 14 seasons reigning over the Philadelphia Eagles, he finished 37 games over 500. He won 58% of his games. He went to 5 NFC championships. He went to the playoffs 9 times in 14 years. He went to 1 Super Bowl, never captured a Super Bowl championship, definitely came up short in that regard. But outside of falling short of a Super Bowl championship, his resume is pretty close to impeccable. He restored law and order to a franchise that was in flux and in chaos. You know, there were times that it was hiccups, obviously. I really believe to this very day, if himself, in a collaborative effort with Donovan McNabb, had found a way to work things out with Terrell Owens, I definitely believe they would have eventually won a Super Bowl championship with Donovan McNabb as their quarterback. But that's not something that they allowed to happen. But in the end, what he did for the city of Philadelphia, what he did for the Eagles franchise, is far more good than bad. They should give him a standing ovation. They should thank him for all he's done for that organization and that city. I'm quite sure if Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles, has anything to do with it, that's exactly what the Eagles will try to facilitate them doing, because, you know, he's a person, he's an iconic figure. He should be an iconic figure in the city of Philadelphia. He did a hell of a lot for that town and a hell of a lot for that franchise. No matter what level of adversity came forth, he was always committed to doing the best job possible. I have a profound respect for him. And to be quite honest with you, it's going to be good. It's going to be good to see him out there back at Lincoln Financial Field.
Stephen A. Smith, I respect how much time you spent around Andy Reid and Donovan McNabb's Eagles. I'm sorry, I was watching it from a distance, much of it, or at least some of it, in Dallas. So I was looking at it from the inside out as a rival city. I can't go to iconic figure for Andy Reid. We're talking about a period of success in which Andy and Donovan McNabb went to 5 NFC championship games, including 4 in a row from 01 to 04. And then, of course, as you talked about, the 1 Super Bowl appearance, losing to the Patriots. I have always thought from a distance that Andy got a little too much credit for that run, and Donovan never got quite enough. So to me, if I'm an Eagles fan, and God knows I'm not, but if I can project, I would expect them or want them more to give polite applause to Andy and save their love, their outpouring of emotion and gratitude for the halftime ceremony in which Donovan McNabb is honored in Philadelphia. And it will be an emotional night on both counts, but I would go that way more than the Andy Reid way. And by the way, Andy is coaching a very good football team in Kansas City that is going in there to try to win the game on Thursday night. I kind of think they will win this game. So here's my bottom line, Stephen A. I always thought, again, from a distance in Dallas, that the late, great Jim Johnson, the defensive coordinator, was the unsung, unheralded MVP of that great run that Donovan and Andy had together. Those teams were built more on the bedrock of defense than on Andy Reid's West Coast offense, that I thought Donovan did the best he could in, given the fact they did not run the football effectively. They really didn't try to run it that much at all. And Donovan was throwing to who? Fred X, Freddie Mitchell, Todd Pinkston. You know, maybe we should do this in a second, but to me, T.O. for that 1 year hurt more than he helped. You can blame it. Okay, well, you can blame it on whoever. I blame it on the accident waiting to happen that was always Terrell Owens. That was more on him. He blew that thing up, but that's just me. So you can't show. Donovan kept overcoming, and they both leaned on their defense to win a lot of football games. So in the end, I back off against Andy was early on called a Dallas killer. He wound up 17-12 versus the Cowboys. Well, the last 9 games against him, he was 3-6. So once Jim Johnson was gone, they began to unravel a little bit, and that was after the 09 season.
I get where you're coming from, but there's a couple of things that I think that you need to give Andy Reid credit for. Number one, there's somebody that brought Jimmy Johnson in that hired him. That would happen to be Andy Reid. Number two, he hired a defensive coordinator that mirrored his mentality and his personality, the issue of toughness. That's why we give Rex Ryan so much credit when it comes to the Jets defense. We never mentioned the fact that Mike Pettin was the defensive coordinator for the New York Jets the previous 4 years before he moved on to Buffalo. A matter of fact, he had to move on to Buffalo because Rex Ryan kept getting credit for the job that he was doing as defensive coordinator. Why? Because we know Rex Ryan knows defense. We knows that he put his personality imprint on that defense, and that's why the Jets were so formidable, ranking 1, 3, 5, and 8, respectively, over his first 4 years in New York. Well, the same could be said for Andy Reid as it pertains to Jimmy Johnson. Now, Jimmy Johnson would blitz you all day, no doubt about it. Brian Dawkins, B-Dawk, can speak to that, intimately because he was the safety. He was the resident hitman for Jimmy Johnson's defense at that time with the Philadelphia Eagles. But Andy Reid's the one that brought him in. Andy Reid is the one that unleashed the reins and allowed him and that defense to be who they are. Not to mention the fact that, again, when you talk about leadership within the organization, terms of structure, having the years of success. I mean, you go down the line from 2000 through 2004. They were 11-5 twice, 12-4 twice, 13-3 once, and obviously the last year the next year after the Super Bowl they nosedived to 6-10 because T.O. got thrown off the team and all of this other stuff. But in the end, I'm not dismissing what you're saying as it pertains to Donovan McNabb getting a boatload of applause, because I think he deserves it as well. I told you what the knock is against him, that he wasn't outspoken enough and he didn't have a lot of things to say, and people are going to hold that against him because it speaks to a level of intestinal fortitude. If he had it in a different way, perhaps T.O. and others would have flown correctly, and then ultimately the team would have been able to remain intact, and you could have really chased Super Bowls for a couple of years, not just one. So Donovan McNabb, in conjunction with Andy Reid, are both going to be held accountable to that to some degree, along with T.O. But in the end, when you look at the totality, the cumulative effect of their record, there is no denying that Andy Reid deserves just as much credit for Donovan McNabb. He was the one that drafted Donovan McNabb. He didn't want, Ricky Williams and all of these, whoever it was at the time. All right, when Donovan McNabb got booed in New York City, when a whole bunch of Philly fans rolled up there, Andy Reid knew that was coming. He didn't care. He drafted Donovan McNabb. He put Brian Westbrook around him. You got Jimmy Johnson and B-Dawk and Trotter and all of those boys on defense. Andy Reid had a lot to do with that, because even though Joe Banner deserves a lot of credit now, he's now running things in Cleveland. He worked in conjunction with Andy Reid. A lot of stuff had to be mirrored to what Andy Reid thought would work and what Andy Reid wanted. And Jeffrey Lurie trusted Andy Reid, which was why Andy Reid lasted longer than Joe Banner. So let's keep all of those things in mind. You can't erase or just omit and eradicate the credit that Andy Reid deserves. He deserves a lot of credit for whatever level of success the Philadelphia Eagles enjoyed.